Hey guys, this is Lisa from My Copper Life, and today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little gingerbread man ornament. The materials we'll need for this project are as follows: bent chain nose pliers, flat nose pliers, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, flush cutters, 16 gauge copper wire, 24 gauge red coated wire, 18 gauge red coated wire, and a metric ruler. So here we go. Let's get started on this fun project. Okay, so I'm going to start with some 16 gauge bare copper wire. You can use whatever color you'd like to make your gingerbread man. I'm choosing to use copper because when I oxidize it, it'll change to a nice brown color and look more like a gingerbread man. Now for the length of wire I need, it's about 47 centimeters of this 16 gauge wire. So here you're going to see me straighten that wire out as best I can and then cut 47 centimeters. Now I'm taking my wire and placing it back on my metric ruler, and I'm going to find center of this wire. And when I find that center point, I'm going to take my Sharpie and mark that. So now I'm going to take this jar of cut lube that I have. Since I don't have a bunch of professional mandrels around, I use a lot of items from my house as mandrels. And this jar of cut lube measures about 3.5 centimeters in diameter. And so that was perfect for my gingerbread man head. So as you can see, I'm wrapping the wire around this jar, and then I'm going to bring the ends back up the sides a little bit. Now I'm going to remove it off of the mandrel and just kind of check it to see that my center mark is center of the top of that circle. And now I'm going to grab my Sharpie and I'm going to mark the neck of my gingerbread. So first I find the center, and then I'm going to do about the 5 o'clock and the 7 o'clock points on here and mark those spots. And I'm marking toward the ends of the wire so that way when I bend them, it's going to be in the right wire I'm bending, the right point. So you can see how I did that right on the top wire and then the bottom wire. Now I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and grab right at where I made that marker, just on that inside part, and then pull the wire back to the outside. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. As you could see, my chain nose pliers has this white coating on it. That's called Tool Magic. I use this on my tools to help with marks. I am not sponsored by them. It's just something I really like to use. It does wear off after a few uses, and I will recoat my tools as needed. Here I'm using the flathead pliers to start shaping his little arms. Now I'm going to start shaping his little arm. I'm going to go ahead and bend that down and around. One thing I found helpful in creating this gingerbread man is a cookie cutter. So what I did is I just got a cookie cutter, looked at the shape of it, and then copied it basically with the wire. So I just kind of shaped it exactly the way the cookie cutter was. That way it kind of turned out just like a cookie. Another way you could do this is taking the cookie cutter and tracing it with a Sharpie marker onto a piece of paper, and then placing your wire on the line of the cookie cutter that you just did, and follow it with your wire, and then it usually turns out pretty good for me. That's how I first started doing it, and then once I got the idea of it, I just can do it without anything. So here for the next little bit, I'm going to be shaping the rest of the gingerbread man. You can kind of watch. I'm just doing a mirror image of the other side at this point. And then when we get down to the end of the wire there, I will continue to explain more. Okay, now I'm going to cut off the little bit of excess wire here, because what I need to do is take the end of that wire and make a little loop so that the other wire can go into it. So as you can see here, I'm making a small loop with my round nose pliers, and then going to straighten that out, and then I'm going to slide the other wire into the loop I just made. And this is going to connect the two sides together. Now I'm going to take the other side and cut off any excess there, and then just start to make a loop here. I'm not going to do the whole entire loop. Basically, you're just making a little U shape at the end of the wire, and then pull the other loop into that U shape. And then using my index finger and thumb, I'm pulling the wires taut so that I can then close down that partial loop as tight as I can to kind of close that off. Now I'm just going to make any little adjustments I need to make, straightening out the wire before I go to start my next part. Isn't he cute so far? Okay, now I'm going to use my chasing hammer, and I'm going to harden this gingerbread man a little bit so he's not too bendy. So I'm just going to hammer the entire thing, except for where the wires are joined right there. I won't hammer that part, but the rest of it I do. And now as you can see, it's kind of concave from hammering the one side, so now I'm going to go back and hammer the other side until it lays flat. And now he's all hardened. Now I'm grabbing my 18 gauge wire. This is copper wire that's coated with a red coating and an anti-tarnish coating on top of that to kind of help the coating to stay on. And I am going to get 18 centimeters of this wire. Now I'm going to bend the wire up into a V shape from the center. And about 1.5 centimeters from that center point, I'm going to bend the wire down. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So then you'll have like a little M shape. And right now we're trying to create the bow for the gingerbread man. There we go. And now I'm going to take it back in toward the center of the bow, and then back out on both sides. So bringing it back in, and then back out, bending it back out to look like little ears. And now we're going to bend this wire around all the way back up to the center of the bow there, and do the same thing to the other side. And it's basically going to resemble a little butterfly. That's kind of what I think of every time I make these. Here I'm going to start making any adjustments to kind of get them to look about the same. One wing was just a slight bit bigger than the other wing. Notice, I think they look like butterflies. So I'm going to make the other side just a little bit bigger so that it kind of matches a little bit better. And there you go. Now I'm going to take the wires and bend them down toward the back. And then I'll bring it back up through the center and back down again into the back of the bow. I'm trying to get that wire right in the middle and right in between the wires that were already there. And then there goes the second wire. And now I'm going to flip it over to the back and pull both wires down into that groove. And make any adjustments that need to be made at this point. Now I'm going to grab my flush cutters and I'm going to cut these wires about halfway down the center part of where that bow knot is, and cut those excess wires off. Now I'm going to take my bent chain nose pliers and I'm going to push or press those wires down in between the other wires, the center of that bow. And just kind of push them down in there. And then if they're still kind of long, you can nip off the ends of those and make sure they are hidden on the back side of this bow. You don't really want them to show from the front of the ornament. So here you can see me doing that, making the adjustment. And then retucking that back in, nice and tight. And there it is, nice and finished with some minor adjustments here. And there's the little bow. And we're ready to move on to the next step. Now I'm taking some 24 gauge coated copper wire, the same wire that I used to make the outer edge of the bow, but this is smaller gauge, 24 gauge, and I'm going to start wrapping around my bow. This piece was cut at 55 centimeters. So I'm doing 3 single wraps around the top part of that bow, and then I bring it down and over, and then wrap 2 wraps around the bottom. And there you can see how I've done that. Now I'm going to push the wire back up through and bring it over the top of the top part of the bow. And then wrap around 1 single time around the top. And then I'm going to take it back through the bow and over the top of the bottom wire again, and then wrap twice. And we'll continue in this pattern. The bottom part of the bow is a little longer than the top part of the bow, so that's why I do 2 wraps on the bottom and 1 single wrap on the top. So by the time you get to the end, it'll even itself all out. Okay, once you get to the end, you'll do one more single wrap around that top. It gets a little bit hard to get that wire through there, but it can be done. And then I'm going to kind of make an L shape right across the middle of the side of that bow. Bring the end of my wire back over the base wire of the bow. Be careful not to go on the wrong side of the wire. You want to just come around the base wire and not the weaving wire. Like that. And then you're going to pull that all the way through and tighten it down over the center of that bow right there, of the side of the bow. And what this is going to do is it's going to tie off the end and give me a little bit of a tag, I guess you'd call it, at the end of the bow there, so that I will be able to attach it to the gingerbread man frame. So now I'm going to cut off the end of the weaving wire where I started and make sure we cut that flush so there's no pointy bits. Tuck that wire in, and that side is finished. And now you just need to do the same thing on the opposite side of the bow. And here we have the finished bow with the tags on either side so that we can attach it to our gingerbread frame. So now I'm going to take one of those little tabs and wrap it around that right shoulder, I guess you could call that. I usually wrap around 4 to 5 times on this part to ensure that it's going to stay tight on there. And then we'll do the same on the other side as well. There's the one side. So now I'm going to the other side, and we'll wrap 4 to 5 times around this side. Now I'm going to cut off the ends of my wire and tuck that wire down, ensuring there's nothing pokey or pointy that will catch on things. And then do some minor adjustments, and there you have his little bow. Now we're going to create the little belt on this guy. So I'm going to take the 18 gauge coated red wire again, and I'm going to get about 5 centimeters of this wire. And there's that. I'm going to take one side with my round nose pliers and make a partial loop, kind of like I did when I was closing off the legs together. So there you go, there's the little hook, and then put it around his waist and then close it off. There, that's closed up. Now I'm going to move to the other side, and I'm just going to bend that wire over the frame and then cut off any excess. And then I will close that down onto the frame. And there's the bottom of his shirt or his belt, whichever way you want to look at that. And I'm going to do any little minor adjustments I need to do at this point. Okay, now we're going to make the little button section of his shirt. So I'm going to take the 24 gauge red coated wire and cut about 12 centimeters for this part. Next, I'm going to grab my gingerbread man and take that 24 gauge wire and wrap around the center part of that bow 2 times. And then bring the wires toward the back of that bow and that gingerbread man. I'm going to take the tail end of the weaving wire and go around the longer part of the weaving wire. So I'm going to wrap around the longer part of the weaving wire 3 times to kind of tie that end off. Once I get around 3 times, I'm going to pull the tail around to the back of that wire and then cut off the little end piece and make sure that's nice and flush back there. And now I'm just going to make sure that's tucked up into the bow there. And you can see that nice and finished. And now I'm going to pull this wire straight. And I'm going to use these little silver beads. They're about 5mm beads. And I'm going to put that onto the wire. And then I'm going to wrap around the bead to kind of trap that bead onto the wire. And then run the wire back down through the top of the bead. And this will kind of hold that bead in that spot where I want it to be at. And that's about 1 centimeter from the center of the bow. I'm just kind of tucking that in there as tight as I can around that bead. And then pulling that tight. And there you can kind of see it's in there. And then I push that little piece of wire toward the back so it's not visible from the front. Like that. And now I'm going to add the next bead on. And that's probably about 1/2 centimeter from that top bead. And come back around, go back down through the top of the bead, and pull it back down just like we did the first one. And then push that wire toward the back again. And then we'll do the same thing with the last bead. So now we're going to get ready to wrap this tail end of the wire around the belt or the bottom of the shirt, whichever you prefer to call that part. And I'm going to wrap it around 3 to 5 times, just depending on how much wire I have left, really. 3 times is usually sufficient. If you want a stronger, you can do 4 or 5 times. And there it's attached. Isn't he the cutest little thing? I really like this. It's just a simple little ornament. You can add a face to it and do whatever you'd like to do. You can decorate your gingerbread man any way you want, just like you would a cookie. Now we're going to make our hook for our gingerbread man. I'm going to take the 18 gauge wire, about 20 centimeters, and make a loop at the end of the wire. Then start to make the swirl. And I'm going to probably go around the loop about 1 full time, all the way around. And then I'm going to bend it back straight down from that point here in just a second after I do some adjustments. Okay, and then there you see me bending it back down straight. And then I'm going to find the halfway point from the bottom and bring it up. And then I'm going to make a loop at the very end of the wire toward the hook, like that. And then just push that up against the side of the hook. And there you have a little hook for the ornament. And there's the finished product, guys. Isn't he the cutest little thing? I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this. We'll see you the next time.